an original MCM production.
Well, good evening. I want to thank Alderman Bauman for inviting me to crash the party to talk a little bit about the arena project. And I'm excited to get the opportunity. This is one of the first public settings in the city of Milwaukee where we've had an opportunity to have a discussion about an important yet controversial project. So what I've asked the staff to do is to lock the doors so that no one can leave. Just kidding. But I want to take you on a little tour. And I've got 33 slides that I'll go through pretty quickly. But I want you to get a sense of our vision, my vision for the city, particularly downtown, how it ties into the neighborhoods, and why I think this is important for the future of the city of Milwaukee. Let me start out by saying that the one constant of cities is that we are always reinventing ourselves. If you look at when the city was formed in 1846 and who came here, what's happened is that different nationalities have come to the city, but they've all been in search of the American dream, and the only thing that really has changed are the nationalities of the people who have come to the city. So we've had some peaks, we've had some valleys, we've had some challenges, we have some opportunities. But I think right now we are in the midst of a great opportunity for our city. And I want to seize the momentum, and I want to continue the momentum that we have going on in the city of Milwaukee right now. So let's start right here. How do we build on our momentum? And what am I talking about? This is a map of downtown Milwaukee. I will give credit to the downtown bid. Beth was on the stage before. But what her organization did not long ago is they put together this map of investment in downtown Milwaukee, both public and private investment. Investment that's been completed, investment that is occurring right now, and what I call coming attractions, the greatest hits that are coming in the next few years. And not just pie in the sky projections, but things that we think are going to happen. So what are we seeing? What's happened since 2005 through 2014? What we have seen, and you can look at the little box there in the upper center, is close to $5 billion. $5 billion in investment in and around downtown. $2.6 billion, again, this is both public and private, has been completed. Another $980 million is occurring right now. The two projects that most notably make up that $980 million are the Northwestern Mutual Tower, as well as the building on East Michigan, the 833 East Michigan. The $1.277 billion really covers things that we think are coming. It does include the arena so that you have an understanding, but close to $5 billion. I want that momentum to continue. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, this is downtown. This is downtown. I don't live downtown. I live in a different part of the city. What does this do for me? This is what this does for you. Downtown has 3.2% of the city's land area, yet it produces 18.6% of the tax base. So you see these maps of states and which is a donor state and which state gets more than they deserve. If you look at the services that we provide as a city, in other words, if you care about fire protection and you live on the south side, if you care about police protection and you live on the north side or the west side, if you care about libraries and you live in the central city, we are able to provide those if we have a healthy downtown tax base. I come from the neighborhoods, that's my political base. I love the neighborhoods, but we have to have a strong downtown at the same time if we're going to support the neighborhoods. So now we're going to have a little history lesson here because I think it's important for us to put this all in a context. Some of you who are a little older may recognize this map. This map is looking basically east, and the expressway there is the Park East Expressway. If you remember that, it was torn down about 12 years ago. My predecessor, John Norquist, really made it his career mission to create more livable communities, and he felt very strongly that this freeway system, as it came into the heart of downtown, was disruptive and separated the northern neighborhoods from downtown. So this is looking east. Again, you can see the river there coming through, and many of you probably don't even remember that expressway used to go pretty far east of the river. The circled area is the area that we're going to focus on later tonight. That is the area, and you can see the Bradley Center there just to the right of the circle. That is the area that we're focusing on tonight. Here's a shot of it now with again, starting not looking a little northeast, I'm sorry. This is the area right here that will be several of the blocks. This is the area where the arena itself would be. This would be the public plaza area. And of course, this is the Bradley Center. So what else is going on here? And the reason that I'm going to include these slides is I want you to know that there's a lot going on in what we generally refer to as the Park East. I think a lot of times people are focused on that 2 or 3 block area that I just showed you that's vacant. But there's a lot that has occurred since that expressway came down that tells you, again, just how the city is recreating itself and how dynamic some of the areas are in and around this area. This is sort of an MSOE tribute, because what has happened is that MSOE, the Milwaukee School of Engineering University, has really made some major investments in this area east of the river. This is the Groman Museum. This is the play field here. This is the soccer field. Again, this is just east of the river, an area that used to be the expressway. This is the Kern Center, which is just a little bit south of here. Again, a sparkling new building. All of this is in or adjacent to the Park East. But there's more than this. This is the area, Water Street, this is the area where the new North End 3 building is going. That's the Lackey and Joy building, I think, right there. You can see the North End. This is going to, most likely could be a grocery store, I think is what they're looking at for this area. This is just south of there. Here's a shot of the North End and the buildings that we have in the North End. This is the Avenir. Again, in the old Park East corridor, this is a Stu Wangard investment. These are apartments. He purchased the land. He's building these apartments. That's in the Park East as well. This is Convent Hill. And the reason I have this in is to show you how important it is in a city to have diverse housing. This is public housing right here. This is the Avenir. Here's the North End. This is Convent Hill. And it's a facility for primarily older people. And we're very proud of this. This is the Milwaukee Housing Authority. So again, you can see that there's been a lot of construction that has occurred east of the river, but it's not just east of the river, it's west of the river as well. Here's Manpower. I think we're all familiar with Manpower. Just west of the river, that was an investment that was made that brought Manpower, I refer to them as our prodigal son, back into the city because their historic roots were in the city. They had moved out of the city. They moved back to this incredible facility that is their world headquarters. You've got the Aloft, which is just west of the river as well, a new hotel that we think has added a lot. We've got the Modern, again, west of the river. So what you can see is that there's a lot going on there. The brewery is at the western end. Again, this is the area, the vacant area. This is the old Pabst Brewery, which is now the brewery. This occurred because Joe Zilber decided he wanted this to be his legacy. And he made a tremendous investment through his business holdings and himself personally to create a new neighborhood here. What you have going here, when I talked about the nearly $5 billion in investment, I talked a little bit about the North End, I talked a little bit about Avenir, about the Modern. Here you have probably 300 apartments that are going in right now. And one of the things that makes this time different from when the Bradley was built in the 1980s is there are a lot more people who live in or near downtown. There are literally tens of thousands of people who are living in or near downtown, and we want to capitalize on that. We want this momentum to continue. Again, this shows you different parts of the brewery, the Joe Zilber facility. The Schlitz Brewery, this was really the pioneer in historic rehabilitation and adaptive reuse. There are more people working in Schlitz Park now than worked there when it was a brewery. And so what we have done, again, this is a sign of a city reinventing itself. We are continuing trying to use these buildings. Many of these are gorgeous historic buildings to try to make sure that we've got places for people to work and to live. So here's a map, an aerial view, or a magic carpet ride, as I like to call it, of this part of the city. Again, here's the Modern, here's the Aloft, MLK Drive, the beer line, which I'll talk about later, Haymarket, Schlitz Park I mentioned. Over here you've got the townhouses at Carver, Hillside, the brewery, MacArthur Square, Wisconsin District. But you can see that there's an area in this map where we need to do some tapestry to connect all of this together. that we want to make sure that this part, which is pretty much close to the center, that we are using this in a productive way. Again, to have the context, this is the brewery, this is moving west towards the river. Here's the river. So let's start zeroing in on what we're talking about here. This, of course, is the rendering that came from the Bucks as to what they envision in this area. This is the area where the old Bradley Center is, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the arena itself. This is the plaza area, and this is the area just north, again, on those vacant pieces of land in the heart of the Park East. Another view, this is looking northwest, so you can see what they envision in terms of the plaza and the arena itself, again, looking northwest. This is now looking south. We're moving around here. This is looking at those blocks, and this is information that's been provided to us from the Bucks, the things that they would like to see here. I would say, if you look over here, the practice facility, that's in phase one. That's probably, along with the arena and the plaza, the biggest sure bet. This is something that they want to make sure happens and happens quickly. These are those different blocks. In here is going to be the parking deck that the city is a partner in, and these are blocks that would come in phase two, or perhaps phase three of this as well. We'll get to that. So I think this would be the phase three as you look south. Here's again an aerial view. This is the major area, the main area. This is where the new arena would be right here. This would be the plaza. This is the area going up towards the brewery where you'd have the practice facility. This is the area where you would have the parking structure. The Bradley Center would come down in phase two. Phase three would be these two blocks as well. So what's going on here? What are the funding sources for this, and how does the city fit into this? Where are the requirements, and what is the city being asked to do with this in the legislation that's pending before the state, and what I have introduced in the city council that now has gone through Rackham and is awaiting action from the council? I have to start with Senator Herb Kohl. We would not be here if it were not for the generosity of Senator Herb Kohl. No matter how you feel about this, Senator Herb Kohl deserves our civic thanks for making a $100 million contribution to this. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that. Then you get down to the nitty-gritty of how we reached the $500 million. And I want to talk about that. Then you've got the Bucks, who have made the commitment to $150 million. So let me tell you, just in shorthand, how I view this. I view this as a $500 million public works project paid for with $250 million of private money. It's going to put thousands of people to work. And we need to put people to work. And that's something that is of utmost concern to me. How are we going to put people to work, particularly people from the central city of Milwaukee? So let's break down. We know that we've got the $500 million. Let's break down the different sources. The largest source is going to come from the Wisconsin Center District. They've been hit the hardest. And this is the part where I think is the most tenuous. And this is the part, if we're going to do anything to strengthen this, this is the area where I want us to strengthen this. Because what happens here is the Wisconsin Center District's financing doesn't come in for many years, and the interest will build up in that period. I would like to find ways to bring that number down because this includes interest. Next, you've got Milwaukee County, which is committed to giving $4 million a year through the proposed legislation. The state of Wisconsin, which is committed to giving $4 million per year. And then you have the city of Milwaukee, $47 million. In addition to that, and I'll talk about this a little later, we've had an agreement with the Bucks on some infrastructure and some other work that we have to do. But let's come down to the city's contribution. What I have asked the city council to consider are two TIDs, tax incremental districts. One is a new tax incremental district that I'll talk about in a few minutes that's $20 million. The second is an amendment to what's known as the beer line tax incremental district of $27 million. That's how we get to the $47 million that the city is being asked to contribute. Again, if you were to look at the legislation, they talk about $250 million, and then right off the top, they take off $47 million. So what would this $47 million go toward? So let's just keep moving ahead here. Or let me talk about the terms before I get to that. The state legislation states that the Bucks are responsible for all costs over $500 million, that the public investment is capped at $250 million. If the cost is less than $500 million, we're going to have a party. And after the party, the parties would be reimbursed proportionately. The only portions of this that are tax exempt are the arena and the plaza, the public plaza part, plus the new city parking structure, which is common for city parking structures. The Wisconsin Center District will own the arena. There's a 30-year lease to the Bucks. There's a potential for 2 5-year extensions. The Bucks would be responsible for the operation maintenance of the arena. That means they would keep the arena revenue, including the naming rights. The public entities would be reimbursed proportionately if the lease is broken, and the Bucks are responsible for demolishing the Bradley Center. The terms, again, for the city obligations, what we said, and there was a lot of conversations about this, and ultimately I felt, along with my team, that we were most comfortable in doing things that are in our wheelhouse. And what I mean by that is when you look at the Bradley Center, for example, the Bradley Center correctly is viewed as a gift from the Pettit family to the city of Milwaukee. It was a gift. The Pettit family gave $90 million back in the 1980s for the construction of that. But the city agreed at that point to do a $30 million parking structure. That's what the city agreed to do and what the city did to support the Bradley Center. In this instance, what we are doing, some 25 years later or so, 27 years later, whatever it is, we would be contributing $35 million towards the construction of a parking structure, the one that I had showed you that's going to be in that Park East area. In addition to that, we would contribute $12 million through a TIF towards the construction of the plaza outside of the arena, that public area, again, just east of the arena. We would convey the 4th and Highland parking structure to the Bucks. We would convey Rackham Park East. There's a small piece of land that we own at the southeast corner of the Park East that we would convey to the Bucks. And then we'd have various public infrastructure improvements, street alley vacations, that means getting rid of them, street resurfacing, rebuild 5th Street, some city utility work. The parking structure would be constructed by the Bucks, owned by the city, operated by the Bucks. This last one is an important one because this was one that was negotiated quite diligently, for lack of a better term. I think when we went into this, the Bucks assumed that they would get 100% of the revenue from that. I naively thought the city should get 100% of that. So that opened the negotiations. What transpired was a series of meetings between Rocky Marcoux and our city development staff and the Bucks leadership team. And we had sort of a stalemate there. We had a stalemate there, and the proposal that we were stuck on, just so everybody knows, was that we would divide the revenue in this way. 70% of the special events money would go to the Bucks. 30% of the special events money would go to the city. 70% of the daily parking would go to the city. 30% of the daily parking would go to the Bucks. If you look at that, 70% of the revenue that comes from the parking structure comes from special events. And so when we were having these negotiations, just so you know how my mind works, I said, this may make sense to you, but I can't explain this to someone who lives on 35th in Oklahoma. This is way too complicated. We have to go back and we have to make this something that we can defend and that we can explain. And what I will do is I will support this if it's a 50-50 split. And I will support it with the council. I can't guarantee the council is going to support it, but I will fight for this split with the council. If we go anything less than that, you're on the council and you're on your own. And we had some good back and forth, and this was resolved in the context of some workforce development issues, some fee issues. But as we were doing the negotiating, this is something that was important to us. We believe, based on our estimates, that this is going to be a significant figure, in fact, higher than the amount that we are receiving right now from the parking structure on 4th and Highland. But just so you have that. I talked about the street vacations. Again, until I got to the city, whenever people were talking about street vacations, I was like, well, who wants to take a vacation? That means getting rid of the street. And then street dedication. So these would be the new streets, and these streets would be closed off, just so you have that engineering lingo down in case you're on Jeopardy. The terms, again, the Bucks obligations, they construct the arena, the plaza block, and the parking structure. They demolish the Bradley Center. There's an easement for vacated 4th Street. There's a dedicated 5th Street. There are local retailers for 25% of the live block. And this is something that's important for us. We want this live block to fit in with the culture and the texture of our city. We don't want to plop some generic plaza there. And this is important to us because there's a lot of viable businesses on Old World 3rd Street. There are a lot of viable businesses across the river on Water Street, on Milwaukee Street. And we want this to be something that fits in well. And that's one of the reasons that the Bucks have purchased 2 of those lots so that you can have easy access to Old World 3rd Street. But part of this was to make sure that we have at least 25% of the retailers on the live block be local retailers. Permit fees was also an issue. The Bucks were concerned that the permits fees would go way, way, way high. What we did, because we wanted, and when I talked to Wes Edens, one of the owners of the team, he stressed to me that they were looking for certainty. And they just wanted to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. I agreed. The more that we can resolve ahead of time, and we know that there are going to be bumps along the way, but the more that we can resolve in a sort of a global package, the better off they are, the better off the city is, the better off the taxpayers are. And so we did an analysis, and obviously they're on an accelerated schedule, but we want to make sure that we have the permits, that we've got all the different oversight from the different city departments, and we want to make sure that the taxpayers aren't paying for it. This is what we would do for all major construction, all construction projects, is our permit fee by state law means it has to tie into what the costs are that the city are. We did an analysis, and it came very close to $1 million, and we said, all right, this is what we're going to charge. So there's some certainty with that. Then you've got the detailed plan development for all blocks. This is something that's important to, I think, Alderman Bauman, to the Common Council, that they're going to continue to be active participants in moving forward on this. And here was another big one, the human resources for the arena. As I said before, I want to make sure that there are jobs for people in this city. So what we did is we've got 25% small business for construction, 18% small business for professional services, 40% residential preference. This is a little different from what we have done. What we did about a year, maybe 2 years ago, we passed a new ordinance with higher residence preference numbers. This means city residents. And the reason we did that is we want to make sure when there are tax dollars involved that we've got people who live in the city who are helping. And nobody should be shocked that the mayor of the city is going to feel that way. So what we said is 40% have to be residents of the county. 30% or 75 of the 40% have to come from the city. This is a little different, a little lower than Northwestern Mutual because the concern was whether there are people that are working there would be able to move over right away. We also changed the RPP so that if someone is working on Northwestern Mutual right now or 833 under the Residence Preference Program, that they could jump over here. And the reason I felt strongly, and I think the Bucks wanted it for flexibility, I felt strongly because I think the worst thing we can do when we're bringing people back into the workforce is give them one project and say, okay, now go back and sit on the bench. What we want to do is we want to create a pipeline for people to get into the trades. And this, for us, was a way to build that pipeline, so to have some continuity so people could move from one project to another. Northwestern Mutual, it has been immensely successful up to this point. And I went past that site. I was on one of my downtown walks about 3 weeks ago, and I walked past that site, and it reflected the population of this city. The diversity of this city was reflected in that workforce. And it was one of those moments where I was like, yes, yes, this is what we want. We want people in our community to be part of the great development that's going on in our city. And so I wanted to publicly thank Northwestern Mutual for not only living up to, but exceeding the requirements that we had in our arrangement with them. And you can just see some of the workers. These are pictures that are just taken, I think, by Rocky Marcoux in the last week or so to show you that this is real. So let's get back to the tips and what we're talking about with the tax incremental financing districts and why we think this makes sense for the city. Again, the first one, the TID 84, West McKinley and West Juneau. Think of this as Arena proper, all right? That will be $20 million. $12 million of that will come through Rackham. $8 million is developer finance. And this is important because part of what's going on here is, of course, you've got the Bucks saying that there's going to be a lot of ancillary development. I'm very excited about that, but we wanted to have a safeguard put in place that there will be the ancillary development, just to be safe. Trust but verify, trust but verify. And so what we said is, all right, we want you to have some skin in the game too. You'll be able to get your money back, but you'll get your $8 million back after we get our $12 million back. In other words, if we don't see that ancillary development, it's going to be more difficult for them to get their $8 million back. If there is the ancillary development that they've been talking about, they can get this money back a lot sooner. We will be paying interest, 4.5%, which may seem like a lot to you, but these are people who know how to invest money, and that was, again, a battle to get to that 4.5%. They wanted more than that. The baseline of this TIF is $51.6 million, or 70 properties. What we estimate right now, this is on phase 1 only, not phase 2 or phase 3, that the city would be repaid in year 15 and the Bucks would be repaid in year 25. So that's the first, that's the new tax incremental financing district. The second one, and this is interesting because, and I'll talk a little bit more about the beer line. The beer line is the area just northeast of downtown, the Commerce Street area. I'm going to show you some slides, before and after slides of that, so that you have a sense of it. What we are doing is we are amending that tax incremental financing district. That tax incremental financing district is still open, is a term that we use. It has reserves of $13, $14 million. So to reach, we'll take the difference between that, and that will get us to $27 million for the parking structure. The other $8 million, in essence, comes from the money that the Bucks are putting into this. So that's how you get to the $35 million parking structure. Doing this will require us to extend the district's life to 2020. So again, under this scenario, our major investment, the parking structure, and this TIF in particular, will be paid off in 5 years. 5 years will be paid off. That's huge. That's very, very attractive to us. We think that that's a really good deal for the city. Here's the beer line. This is a picture of probably in the 1980s. You can see that you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time there. Here we are today. It's been amazing. Again, it underscores the vision that we have of recreating a new city within a city, that we want to make this vibrant. And what I say over and over again is what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of young people and a lot of people who are young at heart who want to come into the heart of the city. So if you're either young or young at heart, thank you very, very much. But this has allowed the tax base, in particular the area along the Commerce Street, to really explode in a very positive way. I want to end up on this because, again, I lock the doors. You can't leave till you hear the rest of what's going on. But I think it's important, again, to put this into the context of the larger city. This is looking west from the lake as to a couple other things that are going on right now that I think everybody should be aware of. Here's Northwestern Mutual, a great addition to our skyline. This is 833 East Michigan that's going up. This is the Couture. Some of you may be familiar with this building. It has not been announced yet. This is the area where you basically have the lawsuit revolving the lake bed issue that Judge Foley just ruled in favor of the county on that. That, depending on whether there's an appeal or not, that opens the door to moving forward with this. This is a new site, and this is just, again, while you're here, you might as well learn something else about the city. Maybe you all know this. This is the expressway, again, coming east. These ramps right now come right here. What we are doing, and this is already a work in progress, is we are moving those two ramps, 794 ramps, a little further. You can see where Summerfest is. It's going to be a little closer to Summerfest. What that does is that opens up this 3 to 5 acre lot right here. And it's our hope that we'll get another major project there. So again, there's a lot going on right now. We want to keep this momentum going. And we think that we're certainly in a good place right now to keep the momentum going. We've got challenges in the city. I don't sugarcoat those challenges, but we have to talk about some of the good things as well as the challenges we face. Just to end with a couple of slides here, that lakefront access that we were talking about, we have created a competition, and these are different entries that we have for different parts. So I don't know if we've got these here, but go to milwaukee.gov, Lakefront Plaza, and weigh in. These are 4 different proposals from 4 different designers of what we would do. This is one season's view. Here's another season's view, and another season's view. So I mentioned that because I'm assuming you're here tonight because you care about the city, and I just want you to take a look at this as well. This is another thing that we're very, very positive about that we think adds a lot of energy. So that's where we are.
An MCM production.